Ronia, the Robber's Daughter, Chapter 15. "My child," said Lovis, "how wet your hair is! Have you been swimming?" Rania stood still, looking at her mother. There she sat, leaning against the rock wall, steady and safe as the cliff itself. Rania looked at her with love, and wished that Lovis had come another time. Any time at all, but not now. Now she would have liked to be alone with Burke. It felt as if her soul were still fluttering inside her after all the ferocity and danger. Oh, if only she had had the chance to talk herself into calm with Burke, and to be glad that they were alive, alone with him. But there sat Lovis, her dear Lovis, whom she had not seen for such a long time. Her mother must not be allowed to feel unwelcome. Rania smiled at her. "Yes, we've been having a little swim, Burke and I." Burke! Now she saw that he was already on his way into the cave, and she did not want that. It must not happen. She rushed after him and whispered, "Aren't you going to come and say hello to my mother?" Burke looked at her coldly. "You don't say hello to uninvited guests. My mother taught me that when she was still carrying me in her arms." Rania gasped. It hurt to be so furious and so desperate. There he stood, Burke, looking at her with ice-cold eyes. The same Burke she had been so close to just now, and whom she had wanted to follow even down Greedy Falls. Now he turned away from her and became a stranger. Oh, how she detested him for that! She had never known such rage before. For that matter, it was not only Burke she loathed. When she came to think of it, she loathed everything, just everything, everything and everyone that pulled and tugged at her until she was nearly torn in half. Burke and Lovis and Matt and the harpies and the bear's cave and the forest and the summer and the winter and that Undis who had taught Burke stupid things when he was an infant, and those horrible harpies. No, wait, she had already dealt with those. But there were other things that she loathed until she could have screamed, even if she happened to have forgotten for the moment what they were. But scream she would, and scream she should, until the mountains rang. No, she did not scream. She just hissed at Burke before he disappeared into the cave. "It's a pity your mother didn't teach you some manners too while she was about it." She went back to Lovis and began to explain. Burke was tired, she said, and then she was silent. She sank down on the rocky platform beside her mother, and with her face buried against Lovis's knee, she cried. Not until the mountains rang, but just a quiet little cry that could not be heard. "You know I have come," said Lovis. And Rania muttered through her tears, "Not to give me bread, I suppose." "No," said Lovis, stroking her hair. "You'll get bread when you come home." Rania sobbed again. "I'll never come home." "Well, then, it will end with Matt jumping in the river," Lovis said calmly. Rania lifted her head. "Would he jump in the river for my sake? But he won't even mention my name." "Not when he's awake," said Lovis. "But every night he cries in his sleep and calls for you." "How do you know?" asked Rania. "Isn't he sleeping with Noddle Pete any more?" "No," said Lovis. "Noddle Pete couldn't stand having him there any longer, and I can scarcely stand it either. But he has to have someone to hang on to when things get really bad." She was silent for a long time. Then she said, "You know, Rania, it's hard to see someone being so inhumanly tortured." Rania felt it was about to burst out now, the crying that was going to make the mountains ring. But she clenched her teeth, and then she said quietly, "Look, Lovis, if you were a child and had a father who denied you so completely that he would not even say your name, would you go back to him? Supposing he didn't even come and ask you?" Lovis thought for a moment. "No, I wouldn't. He would have to ask, that he would." "And Matt never will," said Rania. Once again she hid her face against Lovis's knee and made her rough yellow gown wet with silent tears. Night and darkness had fallen. Even the worst days come to an end. "You go to bed, Rania," said Lovis. "I'll wait here and drop off from time to time, and as soon as it's light I'll go home again." "I want to sleep by you," said Rania, "and you must sing the wolf song." She remembered how she herself had tried to sing the wolf song for Burke, but she had soon tired of it, and she had no intention of singing any other songs for him as long as she lived. But Lovis sang, and the world became as it should be. Rania sank into the deep peace of childhood, and with her head against Lovis's knee, she fell asleep under the stars and did not wake up until the morning was bright. Lovis had already gone, but she had not taken her gray shawl with her. She had wrapped it around Rania. Rania could feel the warmth of it as soon as she woke up, and she breathed in the scent. "Yes, that's Lovis," she thought. "Her shawl smells a little like that little rabbit I once had." Over by the fire Burke was sitting, hunched, with his head on his arms, his copper hair hanging forward, hiding his face. There he sat, looking so hopelessly forlorn that it hurt Rania. She forgot everything else, and with the shawl trailing after her, she went over to him. But she hesitated a little. Perhaps he would like to be left in peace. In the end, she had to ask, "What is it, Burke?" He looked up at her and smiled. "I'm sitting here grieving, sister mine." "Why?" asked Rania. "I'm grieving because you are fully and completely my sister only when Greedy Falls is calling you, but not otherwise. Not when your father calls through his various messengers. And so I behave like a coward, and I'm grieving about that too, if you must know." "Who is not grieving?" thought Rania. "Shouldn't I grieve when what I do pleases no one?" "But it's not fair of me to blame you for that," Burke went on. "It's as it has to be, I know that." Rania looked at him shyly. "Do you want to be my brother in any case?" "Yes, that's just it," said Burke. "I am your brother, fully and completely and always, and you know it. But now you must also know why I wanted us to have this summer in peace, without any messengers from Matt's fort, and why I cannot bear to talk about the winter." Truly, there was nothing Rania wanted to know more. She had wondered a lot why Burke was not worrying at all about the winter. "It is summer now, sister mine," he would say, as calmly as if winter would never come. "We have only this summer, you and I," said Burke, "and the way things are with me now, I don't mind very much about living unless you are with me. And when winter comes, you won't be with me. You must go back to Matt's fort then." "And what about you?" asked Rania. "Where will you be?" "Here," Burke said. "Of course, I could go back and beg my way back into Burke's keep. I wouldn't be driven away, I know. But what good would that do? I'd still be without you. I wouldn't even be allowed to see you. So I'm going to stay in the bear's cave." "And freeze to death?" said Rania. Burke laughed. "Perhaps, perhaps not. I have worked out that you might come skiing down now and then with a little bread and salt and with my wolfskin, if you can get it out of Burke's keep." Rania shook her head. "If it's like last winter, I couldn't manage to ski. I couldn't even get down to the Wolf's Neck. And if it's like last winter and you are living in the bear's cave, it will be the end of you, Burke Borkeson." "Then that's how it will have to be," said Burke. "But it's summer now, sister mine." Rania looked at him gravely. winter. Who said I was going back to Matt's fort?" "I did," said Burke, "even if I have to carry you there myself. I plan to freeze to death on my own if it has to be. But, as I said, it's summer now." Summer would not last forever. He knew it, and Rania knew it. But now they began to live as if it would, and as far as possible they pushed away all painful thoughts of winter. They wanted to make the most of every hour, from dawn to dusk and nighttime, and draw the sweetness from it. The days could come and go. They were living in a summer enchantment and would not be disturbed. They had just a little time left. "And no one is going to spoil that," said Burke. Rania agreed with him. "I'm drinking in the summer, like the wild bee sucking up honey," she said. "I'm gathering it together in a big lump of summer to live on when it's not summer anymore. Do you want to know what there is in it?" And she told Burke, "It's a whole batch of sunrises and blueberry bushes covered with berries, and the freckles you have on your arms, and moonlight over the river in the evening, and starry skies, and the woods in the noonday heat when the sun is shining on the fir trees, and the small rain in the evening, and squirrels and foxes and hares and elk and all the wild horses we know, and when we swim and when we ride in the woods. Well, it's a whole batch of everything that is summer." "You're a good summer baker," said Burke. "Keep it up." They spent all the hours from morning to evening in their woods. They fished and hunted to get what they needed to eat, but otherwise they lived in peace with all the life about them. They took long walks to watch animals and birds, climbed rocks and trees, rode and swam in lakes in the forest where no harpies disturbed them, and the days of summer passed. The sky was growing clearer and cooler. 1 or 2 cold nights came, and suddenly there were yellow leaves in the crown of a birch tree down by the river. They saw them as they sat by their fire early one morning, but they said nothing about it. And new days came with more and more sharpness and clarity in the air. You could see for miles across the green woods. But now there was much yellow and red among the green, and soon the whole riverside was flaming gold and red. They sat by their fire and saw the beauty of it, but they said nothing about it. There was more mist over the river than before, and one evening, when they had to go down to the stream for water, the mist had risen over the forest. Suddenly they were in the midst of the densest fog. Burke set down his bucket of water and seized Rania firmly by the arm. "What's this?" said Rania. "Are you afraid of the fog? Don't you think we'll find our way home?" Burke did not tell her what he was afraid of, but he waited, and suddenly from far away in the forest came that plaintive song he remembered so well. Rania stood still and listened. "Do you hear? It is the unearthly ones singing. At last I can hear them." "Have you never heard them before?" asked Burke. "No, never," said Rania. "They want to lure us down to the underworld. Did you know that?" "I know," said Burke. "Would you like to follow them there?" Rania laughed. "I'm not mad, you know. But Noddle Pete said—" She stopped. "What did Noddle Pete say?" Burke asked. "Oh, it doesn't matter," said Rania. But as they stood there and waited for the mist to lift a little so they could make their way home, she thought of what Noddle Pete had once said. "When the unearthly ones come up into the forest and sing, you know it is autumn, and then it will soon be winter. Oh dear me, yes."